Canadian media is all funded by Justin Trudeau now and the Liberals. If you watch Canadian mainstream media, you're just going to think, oh, wow, Justin Trudeau is taking it to foreign interference or whatever it is they tell you. But the vast majority of Canadians are incredibly fed up with this government. In Canada, this hasn't really hit the news yet because this comes out on Thanksgiving. Canadian Thanksgiving is when this dropped, so it's a long weekend. Also, keep in mind, in Canada, there are much bigger scandals and stories that this is sort of overshadowing. Justin Trudeau is in the middle of a caucus revolt where, when he went away, a group of Liberal MPs signed a petition to get him to resign. And according to them, the signatures spilled onto a second page. We're also in the midst of a massive Chinese foreign interference scandal where the Liberal government's excuse is basically, we don't know where we are, we don't know who we are. Literally, we do not know how to read, so that's why we're not guilty of foreign interference, because all this stuff the government, the security agency tries to warn us about, it was fruitless because we don't know how to read words. So this is where the Liberal Party is right now. Now, there are elements within the Khalistani apparatus. They're all over this. Jagmeet Singh's all over this, his brother, Sukh Dhaliwal, who's likely the one who wrote the letter to bring in Hardip Singh Nijjar into the country. They're all going full bore. So the Khalistani elements are in full attack mode. They're taking this as a total victory, and slamming India. In terms of the rest of the Canadian media, again, we're on a holiday Monday. So there really hasn't been a response from Canadian media. I think Justin Trudeau is set to speak later today. I think you'll start to see some stories leaking out tonight, and then by tomorrow, I think you'll get a narrative from the Canadian media. However, keep in mind, Canadian media is all funded by Justin Trudeau now and the Liberals, so it's all effectively state media at this point. So expect them to sort of just toe the government line here, as they've been doing for the last year. So we live in, it's a classic modern situation where everyone lives in their own little world. So if you're a Khalistani extremist, you're very happy. If you watch Canadian mainstream media, you're just going to think, oh, wow, Justin Trudeau is taking it to foreign interference or whatever it is they tell you. But the vast majority of Canadians are incredibly fed up with this government, don't believe the institutions, don't see the media as credible, doesn't see Justin Trudeau as credible. So many Canadians will just look at this, shrug their shoulders, and probably even side with India, because I mean, effectively, India came out and is like, one step away from saying Justin Trudeau is running a state sponsorship of terrorism, and this wouldn't be too out of bounds from what you'd hear at a lot of family dinners on Canadian Thanksgiving in certain parts of the country.
Right. Daniel, we have seen incidents in the past where Canada has observed moment of silence for Khalistani terrorists, Bab's temple being defaced by Khalistani slogans and graffitis, threats issued to Indian diplomats, and even a float in a parade showing assassination of the Indian Prime Minister. And India has repeatedly asked Canada to take actions, but it has failed. So how do you see this policy by Trudeau of giving space to such extremism and avoiding the safety of Indian diplomats?
Well, I mean, this is part of this problem is not just reserved for Indian diplomats. A lot of Canadians feel this way. So, I mean, you might have seen the nickname in the UK, two-tier Keir for Keir Starmer. And this has been the mentality in Canada for a while. It's pretty clear that there's a two-tier justice system, two-tier social system, and the most violent and anti-Canadian among us get the most preferential treatment. So every week in Toronto, where I'm from, there is a Charlottesville type situation where jihadists march through our streets. They openly call for the murder of all Jews, ethnic cleansing, right? I've covered this. I've been told to go back to Europe and all this different stuff. On Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, a Jewish school was shot up for a second time. Someone drove by and shot 12 bullets into a Jewish girls' school on Yom Kippur. So yeah, Canada's sort of gone off the rails, and the tacit support of extremism from the highest levels of government is starting to have consequences. So this is why I said a lot of Canadians would kind of resonate with what the Indian government is saying. Jewish Canadians don't feel safe. Hindu Canadians don't feel safe. Christian Canadians don't feel safe. Their churches have been burned. Over 100 churches where Christian Nation have been vandalized in the last few years, stemming from a lie about residential school mass graves that was pushed again by Justin Trudeau. So the problems that the Indian diaspora is facing here in Canada, and I guess the country India writ large, is very indicative of the problems that a lot of Canadians feel like they're facing, where they're pro Canada, they're law abiding citizens, they love the country, but they're being treated like they're criminals. On the other hand, you have criminals who hate the country, who are quite literally burning it down live on TV and are getting away scot-free. So of course the Khalistanis feel emboldened enough to make floats about Indira Gandhi and threaten to kill Indian ministers and threaten to burn things down because they've gotten away with it for so many years. And now every day you can look into Canada and you can see a mob calling for targeted violence against an identifiable group and getting away with it scot-free. That's Justin Trudeau's Canada. And, a lot of Canadians, if Justin Trudeau was declared a state sponsor of terrorism, a lot of us would just kind of shrug and be like, yeah, we see it on our streets right now. Justin Trudeau has consistently sided with the Islamic Republic of Iran, even after they murdered Canadian citizens, is incredibly hostile towards India, incredibly hostile towards Israel. And it has consequences. It has consequences in foreign policy, and you're seeing that from India, where diplomats are being kicked out and potentially hundreds of millions, billions of dollars of trade is being threatened. And there's domestic consequences. You can see that on the streets. If you walk down Canadian streets, they are not safe. They are you might run into a violent mob just cruising through the streets. Will they burn things down? Will they just yell and scream? No one really knows. But the country is highly unstable these days.
Right. Daniel, where do you think that this latest development would lead to the ties between the two countries, India and Canada, which is already strained since Justin Trudeau made certain remarks last year against the Indian Prime Minister?
I would say this state of Canadian-Indian relationships would be a cryostasis right now, right? I think the Indians have kind of just put Canada in a cryopod, essentially effectively dead until we get a new government. They don't. I don't think they see Justin Trudeau as a reasonable actor. I don't think he is when it comes to India. I mean, especially if he's propped up by Jagmeet Singh, who's openly hostile. So I think India-Canada relationships for the next year, if there isn't an election, if there's an election that comes sooner because of all the factors, undermining Trudeau right now, then it's not. But I think for the next year, we're looking at sort of a cryostasis where relations and trade all sort of just pushed off to the side and ignored. And then when there's a new government and the Conservatives come in and they come in with an anti-terrorism attitude, with a pro-India attitude, I think things will light up again because I do think at the end of the day, India wants to be part of the global economy, wants to do trade with its partners and allies, and I think they're kind of been blindsided by the whole Heart of Signature affair. So I do think we'll be able to get back to positive relations once the Liberals are out of office. But this has done a significant damage, and we will see if this has lasting impacts where now India relations become like a political thing, where the political left is incredibly anti-India and the political right is pro-India. Considering the state of Western politics, I wouldn't be shocked if that develops. Now, it's a bad thing. You want relations with another country to be a bipartisan issue, but it doesn't seem like we are capable of such things right now.
Right. You mentioned about the election. Trudeau's ruling Liberal Party suffered a second humiliating loss in a special election recently. How dim are his chances to secure another term in office, according to you?
So, I mean, the Liberals are going to get smoked in the next election. Absolutely smoked. I mean, the Conservatives are on pace for a supermajority. It's a first past the post system. And a lot of places, the Conservatives are beating the combined polling of the Liberals and NDP. So when you're up 20 points on your on a country heading into an election first past the post, it's going to be an electoral massacre. Some polls even project the Liberals becoming the fourth party. Some think the Bloc Québécois, which is a French separatist, quasi-separatist, who really knows what the French want anyway. They look like they might end up being the official opposition because the Liberals and the NDP are just tanking in support. In large part due to the policies they acted, I always said the coalition they entered was a Faustian bargain by the two leaders. So Justin Trudeau, the two major Liberal strongholds were lost. One in Toronto, one in Montreal, very Liberal cities. And the NDP almost lost a stronghold out in Manitoba to the Conservatives. Something they usually win by 20 plus points was a very close victory over the Conservatives there. So the Canadian public is done with the Trudeau government. They've not been wanted for the last few years, but he still manages to cling to power. Uh, he'll grab sort of anything he can to cling to power is sort of where we're going here. So don't expect Justin Trudeau to gracefully step aside, even if there's an internal caucus revolt and an RCMP investigation and this and that. This seems like a man who's willing to go down with the ship, so to speak.